Today we're going to be talking about variables and just a general introduction to them if you've never worked with them before. So first I'm going to be talking about what variables are and just explaining their concept. And then I'm going to be using them in equations. And lastly, I'm going to give some life applications to help you understand their uses. So what are variables? Well, essentially they can be anything since they come from the word vary. They are represented by the letters X and Y, usually, as they're most used inside of algebra and using from graphs and linear equations and stuff like that. And it's basically just a placeholder so many different numbers can take its spot. For example, X can become 3, 4, or 5, or different numbers depending on its situation. So what types of situations are there? Well, here's an example. Eric has some amount of money in his bank account and has earned an extra $10 today. So, since we don't know the amount of money in his bank originally, we can write the equation as x plus 10. And if we use 3 examples, we can see that in the first example, world 1, the original amount of money can be $10. That means that if x equals 10, then we have an overall amount of money of $20. However, if you change x, and in world 2, the amount of money is going to become $20, then 20 plus 10 would equals 30. So you can see that if we change x, the outcome will change. However, you can also flip the operation and use the current amount of money. So let's say in world 3, you find that overall, after he earns $10, his current amount of money is going to be $50. That means that x plus 10 is going to equal 50. And if you move 10 to the other side, you can find that x would equal 40. So now let's talk about linear equations. These are when two variables are used and when they don't have exponents. So these use the variables x and y. And if we're given an equation such as this, x plus 40 equals y, you can get two values. Let's say if you're given the x value of 10, you would get a y value of 50, and so on. And usually you can see that if this is plotted onto a graph, you would get the coordinates, and these would form a line. And using a bit more complicated equation, you can use 3x minus 17 equals y. However, this can still be applied in the same way, where if you're given an x value of 10, instead, because we have a different equation, we would get a y value of 13, and so on based on the x value. So lastly, we're going to end it with a life application problem. Bob works at a cafe. Every month, he is able to earn $1,000 consistently. However, occasionally the cafe gets tipped some extra money. Bob gets to keep the tip but has to split it with 3 other workers there first. If Bob wants an equation to help him find out how much money he earns in total every month, what would it be? So let's go through the equation, the problem, and see what information we get. Firstly, it says that every month he earns $1,000 consistently. So $1,000 no matter what happens. And then we get a second piece of information, which is that the cafe gets tipped in some extra money. However, since we don't know what this money is, we would have to use x. And lastly, we know that he has to split the tip, which is x, with 3 other workers. So therefore, this tip gets split with 4 people, including Bob. So you would put this all inside of an equation, which you would get 1,000 plus x divided by 4 equals y. And why this works is that, let's say x, since we know that x is going to be the money tipped and y is going to be the total money earned, you can replace x with any number depending on how much Bob gets tipped every month. let's say he gets tipped $50 in 1 month, then we can find that if X is replaced with 50, his total amount of money earned would become $1,012.5. However, if X is replaced with 584, you can still use the same equation, where if you just replace X with 584, you'll get a Y with 1,146. And this just goes to show that using this equation and replacing X with however much money he gets tipped, you can use this consistently. And this just concludes our basic introduction to variables, where it just tells you how variables work, and I just gave you some examples using equations as well as a life application problem.